It's your boy Anthony Baptiste, Instagram Tone Legacy. Some of y'all formerly know me as Glover. You know, I used to run around here, Long Island, in the city doing parties. February 24th, 2016, I got myself arrested, jammed up, eventually got sentenced to 51 years to life for operating as a major drug trafficker. Only reason I'm out right now is, you know, when I got incarcerated, the only thing I was doing was working out and law library. And without an attorney, I was able to drop some paperwork in the courts and basically reduce my sentence ultimately by 41 years. So after doing 10 years, I got myself out, you know. So today is just to show y'all, man, the fight don't stop. Right now we here in Suffolk County parking lot at the Criminal Courts Building, 210 Center Drive. So February 24th, 2016, this is where I was at. You know what I'm saying? Matter of fact, March 7th is when I got arraigned in that building right there behind me. And we went right through a tunnel to end up right here in this jail. And this is where I was at for 18 months before going to trial, and they handed me that sentence. You know what I mean? So right now, I got motions in the court challenging this conviction and also challenging how they went about seizing this money on my case. So ultimately, the reason they even turned my case into a major drug trafficking case is because they stumbled across approximately like $700,000. And the $700,000 wasn't in their jurisdiction. That's money that they, you know what I mean? The landlord volunteered them to go inside, and they found some money out there in Queens. They actually don't even have no evidence or anything to really tie me personally to it, but they definitely used that shit against me in my trial. But anyways, in order for them to basically seize the money, they had to make the case out in Suffolk County basically equate to $700,000 at least. So in order to do that, they basically took evidence from another case, tied it to my case, to basically make it seem like, okay, this is a big major drug trafficking case, and that money that was found in Queens actually was made in Suffolk County, Long Island. You know, that's just a short version of the whole situation, but that's really all the facts to it. Reason, you know, question that's always asked is how I didn't find this out, or my lawyer didn't find this out, was because when you have a drug case, there's two sides to it, two facets to it. There's a civil forfeiture side and your criminal case. You know what I mean? And unless your criminal attorney is assigned, you hire him to also take care of your civil stuff, or you go get a civil attorney, all that shit's going on in that court. You're not even there involved to know what's happening. All you know, only thing everybody knows is when they cop out, that's when they ask you to forfeit whatever you got to satisfy the judgment, and you don't know the judgment is it's basically a lawsuit against you in another court. But usually after people's cop out, and it's like, all right, whatever they seize, they say you're gonna forfeit that, and that settles whatever the judgment they had against you. So in my case, that was the situation, you know what I mean? It was in a whole nother court, nobody knew about it. When I got incarcerated, I put something called a FOIA request to get all my files. And in my files, that's when I seen they had information from another case and all that shit. Man, that shit was crazy. So today I came here because I never got a response from the Suffolk County attorney on one of my motions. There's two of them. I got one in the civil court and one in the criminal situation. So I never got a response from the Suffolk County attorney on basically the motion I put in. And then I just happened to call, and the clerk told me that a decision was made up here. So I'm wondering, all right, how a decision was made? I didn't get no response to it. And if no response was made on it, then I'm assuming the judge was supposed to make a decision in my favor, because obviously nobody opposed it. But I come in, it's basically the same thing that they've been doing. They always try to hit you with some type of technicality and stuff. So this technicality that they're saying, long story short, is that this thing was supposed to be personally served onto the Suffolk County attorney. But what they know, it's almost impossible for a person who's locked up to do all that shit. So you're basically telling me that you're gonna try to deny my motion on a technicality, because I did this when I was locked up. This is when I started it. You're gonna deny me on a technicality on something because I'm incarcerated and I didn't find a way from behind bars to get the motion personally served. You know, make it make sense, right? But this is how they just jam people up. So it don't matter how strong your case is sometimes, but you got to keep on fighting. You know, now I'm gonna appeal it. I mean, I'm used to this. I've been doing this shit for 10 years fighting with these guys. You know what I mean? But just so y'all know, the fight still continues, man. The fight still continues, man.
The day you got arrested,
So
they told you that they told you your charges and everything, or?
Oh shit, well, I found out the top charge when the day I got arrested when I went to court. So when I got locked up, I didn't think it was on some major traffic and shit. You know what I'm saying? I'm wondering like, all right, probably got jammed up on some little light shit. So I know, you know, nothing going on that crazy. You know what I'm saying? I had different ways of making money and stuff like that. So I know what I was doing, what I wasn't doing. But when I stepped into that courtroom and they said major drug trafficking, facing life in prison, I mean, that shit was a shock. I didn't think it was gonna be all that. They gave me a $5 million cash bail, $10 million bond. And yeah, that's what and that's where it all started, man. Since day one, I mean, I could say the week of, I got myself in that law library and trying to figure out how this legal shit worked. And also, you know, I had to drop some weight too, man. I was in there 300 pounds, so I had to get my life together too. I jumped on that scale. I was like, oh hell no, dude, that's too much turning up, man. Too much turning up, man. I had to get my shit together.
You had code D's?
Yeah, so I had at the time, my girl at the time was a code D. She was called a little misdemeanor, whatever. And my co-conspirator, he's not even from LI, and he out there from the city and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. So it was only like 3 of y'all.
Yeah, there was no drug organization.
That's cool.
Yeah. And what people don't realize, a lot of people probably remember that shit when it hit the TV. So I got locked up February 24th, 2016. They didn't put me on the news until end of April when they picked up on another drug case. And what they did, just to, you know, I told you how they took information from another case, right? Yeah. So to keep that illusion going, they did a press conference and they had my information, me and my co-D. They had my co-D on one canvas. They had me on another canvas. And he had this other canvas with a whole other drug trafficking case. And on the tables behind it, you had like the money and jewelry from our case on one side. And you had this other case, you know, they had like fentanyl, people done died on it and shit like that. So verbally, they said it was 2 major drug trafficking cases. But visually, it looks like we supplying this whole other drug trafficking case. You know what I mean? So it was like a lot of funny shit throughout my whole bid. That right there, it was just crazy. It was crazy.
And this is where you set 18 months before you even knew your fate, basically.
That's a fact, man. 18 months. February 24, 2016.
Before trial, what was the offer?
Oh, the offer was, first offer was 7 joints. Got 7 years offer, you know what I mean? And a lot of people ask like, yo, why didn't you just take that, whatever? Well, I mean, the stuff I was seeing, there was a lot of stuff going on that made me like, oh, now I gotta find out more information on this case. They don't put me in front of somebody else's jury selection to try to scare me to take a plea deal. You know, lawyer at the time tell me misleading information. So I'm a person, I'm a thinker, man. Regardless of what it is, if I'm gonna make a decision on something, it gotta make sense. And I didn't realize until I got in the situation that this shit is based all on fear. You know how many people I've seen took a plea deal and was damn near, I'm not saying I was actually innocent. I was actually innocent of that major drug trafficking charge, but I'm not saying I wasn't out here doing what I was doing. But people that are actually innocent taking plea deals. Cause it's like, yo, you don't take this, they gonna smoke you, and yo, you know what I mean? I mean, my lawyer wasn't lying. He's like, yo, you take this is what's gonna happen. It happened, you know, grace of God, I got myself out, but there's still people upstate, bro. The same kind of charge that I got, still trying to figure out their way out that shit. Drugs, 40 to life, 35 to life. Remember, I'm a first-time offender, and they really had no problem giving me all that time.
So the first offer was 7.
Yeah.
Was there a better offer after that, or that was?
So better offer started coming right at the commencement of trial. Try to take a year off. They try to basically bullshit me, talking about like, oh yeah, you can get these programs and stuff like that. But what I come to find out, if I would have took that and was banking on getting into like shock or something like that, I got enough homeboys that when they went up there, assuming they was gonna get that, they basically dubbed them saying, oh, the severity of the charge, even though you're eligible, but it's still in discretion. So I had my boy, he got caught with like a brick in his car or something, but they just his shit dropped down to A2, which makes you eligible for a situation like shock. But because of all that drugs, they denied him. So they're gonna tell you whatever to take that plea deal. Once you take that plea deal, it's a whole nother whole nother fight, man.
And
Like,
what jail is this? The Riverhead?
yeah, so this is Riverhead. This is Riverhead Correctional Facility.
And how was that 18 months? Like,
I mean, like my whole bid, bro. Like I had to kind of put myself in my own bubble, and it's like if anybody wasn't on the same type of time, then I was on a different type of time. You know, it's like, you know, if it wasn't like me with the niggas I was working out with, or I was with some other people building, you know what I mean, keeping that mind working, then I got a couple boys, you know what I'm saying, I'm gonna go crack some jokes with them and shit like that. You know, you gotta have some fun in that shit, you know, regular shit. But it was this cool vibe, man. I tell people, man, there's thousands of witnesses that been with me inside. You know what I mean? I don't gotta, you know what I mean? I just let other people talk about how it was with me and what it was. Everything gonna be consistent, you know what I mean? From on the street, in jail, prison. I mean, I've always been the same person everywhere I went. So I'll just let them talk about me, you know what I'm saying? And they'll let you know what it was. Enough testimonies out there, you know?
so did you go with a legal aid or?
So I fired my first attorney after all the shit, man. I just couldn't trust shit, like hearing too much. I was like, I fired him. So I couldn't afford no attorney after that. So what they gave me was something called an 18B, which is basically like, it's a private attorney that has to do a certain amount of like cases, and they just, you know, they pay him pennies to the dollar. So you can't expect them to give you the same type of treatment that an attorney same type of treatment that someone they're defending that's paying them $30,000-$40,000. They probably getting like $5,000-$6,000 for it, you know? So, I mean, so, you know, you get the bare minimum. I mean, you know, it's my personal opinion. Even if you got some shit that could probably overthrow the case, it's like, I feel like sometimes these guys be probably feeling, I'm not saying that's the case in my situation, but from all the stuff I done heard and see, it's plausible. Like, even you got some shit thrown, it's kind of like, yo, you ain't pay for that. You know what I'm saying? So like, you ain't pay that $30,000 to get your case thrown out. You paid it to get yourself a cop out. So it's weird, man. That's what I tell people, man. You gotta know your shit, man. I mean, know your shit, man. You gotta start by learning your case when you inside. You know what I mean? And then so now you know if somebody's telling you some real shit or they bullshitting you. Because anybody can make it sound good. I use a couple big words, you're gonna think I know what I'm talking about. And I ain't gonna lie, like, you know, a lot of my success came from building with jailhouse lawyers, you know what I mean? And that it wasn't really here you find a lot of them, but you got some brothers up north, man. They've been down 20, 25 years, bro. They've been studying this law forever. So it's like, you know, I definitely credit a lot of stuff that happened, all the stuff that happened to me also in those conversations I had with them, you know. Definitely had some good conversations with some good brothers that kind of helped direct my path, you know, because I ain't gonna front, I'm definitely hard-headed. So it was like, when I thought I knew my shit, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, nah. So it took me to really they had to really drill that shit in me, like, yo, bro, you gotta look at it this way. So definitely salute to them, man. Shout out to them. Yeah, man, I've been on podcasts. I mean, off the rip, just making calls and networking and stuff like that. They had me talking in front of the John Jay College of Criminal Law. That was my first situation. And then kind of started like networking a little bit, telling people about my story. And I was invited to do a couple podcasts. I was on Ian Bick Locked In podcast. That was a big one. Inside True Crimes. Went down to Tampa for that one. Real Street TV down in Miami. I mean, Miami, that was like a whole situation, man. Shout out to y'all, man. You go to my Instagram, Tone Legacy, you see all that stuff. That was like a whole situation. I got to definitely go back down there. So shout out to y'all down in Florida. And we're setting up for some other podcasters up here, you know, until everything is confirmed. You know, I ain't gonna mention, but you know, it's just been busy, just trying to brand the situation, raise awareness, you know what I mean? Also getting into the whole public speaking thing. You know, this story is it's not just about the criminal advocacy, but it's also about, like, you know, when you find yourself in a situation, man, what you gonna make out of it? You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you gotta go do some shit to be some shit, you know what I mean? You know, if that didn't happen, we wouldn't be here talking right now. It wouldn't be inspiring people right now. You know what I'm saying? While I was inside, definitely a lot of young brothers, definitely, you know what I mean? I'm humbled to say that I definitely helped them through their shit. You know what I mean? And like I said, man, you talk to people inside, they all gonna tell you the same thing, and it's consistent. So everything has its purpose, you know? Sometimes you just gotta lead with faith, bro.